يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا لقيتم الذين كفروا زحفا فلا تولوهم الأدبار.
Believers, whenever you encounter a hostile force of unbelievers, do not turn your backs to them in flight.
ومن يولهم يومئذ دبره إلا متحرفا لقتال أو متحيزا إلى فئة فقد باء بغضب من الله ومأواه جهنم وبئس المصير.
For he who turns his back on them on such an occasion, except that it be for tactical reasons, or turning to join another company, he shall incur the wrath of Allah, and hell shall be his abode. It is an evil destination. It is an evil destination.
The Quran does not forbid orderly retreat under strong pressure from the enemy, provided it is resorted to as a stratagem of war, for example, seeking reinforcements or joining another party in the rear. What the Quran does forbid is disorderly flight produced by sheer cowardice and defeatism. Such a retreat takes place because the deserter holds his life dearer than his cause. Such cowardice has been characterized as one of those three major sins which, if committed, can be atoned for by no other good deed whatsoever. These three sins are ascription of divinity to anyone or anything other than God, violation of the rights of parents, and flight from the battlefield during fighting in the way of God. In another tradition, the Prophet, peace be upon him, has mentioned 7 deadly sins which totally ruin a man's next life. One of these is flight from the battlefield in an encounter between Islam and unbelief. This has been declared a deadly sin because in addition to being an act of sheer cowardice, it demoralizes others and can generate demoralization, which can have disastrous consequences. An individual soldier's desertion might cause a whole platoon or even a whole regiment and ultimately the whole army to take flight. For once a soldier flees in panic, it is hard to control the others.
فلم تقتلوهم ولكن الله قتلهم وما رميت إذ رميت ولكن الله رمى وليبلي المؤمنين منه بلاء حسنا إن الله سميع عليم.
So the fact is that it was not you, but it was Allah who killed them. And it was not you when you threw sand at them, but it was Allah who threw it. And the believers were employed for the task, that He might cause the believers to successfully pass through this test. Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing.
But it was Allah who threw it.
This refers to the occasion when the armies of the Muslims and the unbelievers stood face to face in the Battle of Badr and were on the verge of actual fighting. At that moment, the Prophet, peace be upon him, threw a handful of dust at the enemy, saying, "May their faces be scorched." So saying, the Prophet, peace be upon him, made a gesture and the Muslims started their charge.
ذلكم وأن الله موهن كيد الكافرين.
This is His manner of dealing with you. As for the unbelievers, Allah will surely undermine their designs.
إن تستفتحوا فقد جاءكم الفتح وإن تنتهوا فهو خير لكم وإن تعودوا نعد ولن تغني عنكم فئتكم شيئا ولو كثرت وأن الله مع المؤمنين.
Tell the unbelievers, if you have sought a judgment, then surely a judgment has come to you. And if you desist from disobedience, it is all the better for you. But if you revert to your mischief, we will again chastise you, and your host, howsoever numerous, will never be of any avail to you. Know well, Allah is with the believers. If you have sought a judgment, then surely a judgment has come to you.
Before marching out from Makkah, the unbelievers held the covering of the Kaaba and prayed, O God, grant victory to the better of the two parties. Abu Jahl in particular invoked God's judgment. O God, grant victory to the one who is in the right and cause humiliation to the wrongdoer. God answered these prayers fully, and the outcome of the battle clearly pointed to the party which was in the right.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله ورسوله ولا تولوا عنه وأنتم تسمعون.
Believers, obey Allah and His Messenger, and do not turn away from Him after you hear His command.
ولا تكونوا كالذين قالوا سمعنا وهم لا يسمعون.
And do not be like those who say, we hear, though they do not hearken.
In the present context, hearing means taking heed with a view to obey. The verse alludes to those hypocrites who professed to believe and yet were not willing to carry out the commands of God.
إن شر الدواب عند الله الصم البكم الذين لا يعقلون.
Indeed, the worst kind of all beasts in the sight of Allah are the people who are deaf and dumb, and who do not understand. Indeed, the worst kind of all beasts in the sight of Allah are the people who are deaf and dumb.
These are the ones who neither hear nor speak the truth. So far as truth is concerned, their ears are deaf and their mouths dumb.
ولو علم الله فيهم خيرا لأسمعهم ولو أسمعهم لتولوا وهم معرضون.
And had Allah known in them any good, He would surely have made them hear. But, being as they are, even if He made them hear, they would have surely turned away in aversion. Such people have neither any love for the truth nor any desire to strive for it. Hence, even if they were enabled by God to go forth to the battlefield, they would have turned on their heels at the very first sight of danger. That such people should be a part of the Muslim army might have led to a greater harm than good.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا استجيبوا لله وللرسول إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم واعلموا أن الله يحول بين المرء وقلبه وأنه إليه تحشرون.
Believers, respond to Allah and respond to the Messenger when He calls you to that which gives you life. Know well that Allah stands between a man and his heart, and it is to Him that all of you shall be mustered.
That Allah stands between a person and his heart, and it is Him that all of you shall be mustered.
The most effective means of preventing man from falling prey to hypocrisy is to implant two ideas in his mind. First, that he will have to face the reckoning and judgment of God, who knows what is in the deep recesses of his heart. Even man's intentions and desires, the purposes which he seeks to achieve, the ideas that he seeks to keep hidden in his heart are all well known to God. Second, that ultimately every man will be mustered to God, that He is so powerful that none can escape His judgment. The deeper the roots of these convictions, the further is man removed from hypocrisy. Hence, while admonishing Muslims against hypocrisy, the Quran frequently resorts to emphasizing these two articles of belief.
واتقوا فتنة لا تصيبن الذين ظلموا منكم خاصة واعلموا أن الله شديد العقاب.
And guard against the mischief that will not only bring punishment to the wrongdoers among you. Know well that Allah is severe in punishment. And guard against the mischief that will not only bring punishment to the wrongdoers among you. This refers to those widespread social evils whose baneful effects are not confined only to those addicted to them, but which affect even those who, although they may not be addicted to those sins, are a part of that society. For example, if filth is found at just a few places in a locality, it will possibly affect only those who have not kept themselves or their houses clean. However, if it becomes widespread and no one is concerned with removing uncleanliness and maintaining sanitary conditions, then everything, including water and soil, will become contaminated. As a result, if epidemics break out, they will not only afflict those who were responsible for spreading filth and themselves lived in unsanitary conditions, but virtually all the residents of that locality. What is true of unsanitary conditions in a physical sense also holds true for filth and uncleanliness in a moral sense. If immoral practices remain confined to a few people here and there, but the overall moral concern of the society prevents those practices from becoming widespread in public, their harmful effects remain limited. But when the collective conscience of the society is weakened to a point whereby immoral practices are not suppressed, when people indulge in evils without any sense of shame, and even go around vaunting their immoral deeds, when good people adopt a passive attitude and are content with being righteous merely in their own lives and are unconcerned with or silent about collective evils, then the entire society invites its doom. Such a society then becomes the victim of a scourge that does not distinguish between the grain and the chaff. What God's directive seeks to impress upon people is that the reformatory mission of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the cause he was inviting people to, was the source of life and well-being for them both individually and collectively. People should bear in mind that if they fail to participate wholeheartedly in the task to which they were invited and remain silent spectators to rampant evils, that would invite a scourge that would embrace all. It would afflict even those individuals who neither themselves committed evils nor were instrumental in spreading them, and who might in fact have been righteous in their personal conduct. This point was emphasized earlier. See Al-Araf 7:163-6, and was illustrated by reference to the Sabbath breakers, and constitutes the underlying Islamic philosophy for waging war for purposes of reform.
واذكروا إذ أنتم قليل مستضعفون في الأرض تخافون أن يتخطفكم الناس فآواكم وأيدكم بنصره ورزقكم من الطيبات لعلكم تشكرون.
And recall when you were few in numbers and deemed weak in the land, fearful lest people do away with you. Then he provided you with refuge, strengthened you with his help, and provided you sustenance with good things, that you may be grateful.
And provided you sustenance with good things, that you may be grateful.
The reference to gratefulness in the verse is worthy of reflection. Bearing in mind the subject under discussion, it appears that gratefulness does not simply mean that Muslims should acknowledge God's favor to them insofar as He rescued them from their state of abject weakness. God had not only salvaged them from an insecure life in Mecca and provided them with a haven of security in Medina, where they enjoyed an abundance of livelihood. Gratefulness does not simply require all that. Apart from acknowledging God's favor, gratefulness also demands that Muslims should faithfully obey God and His Messenger out of a consciousness of God's munificence.
out of loyalty and devotion to the Prophet's mission, and should cast aside all dangers, hardships, and misfortunes that might confront them. In their struggle for God's cause, Muslims should have complete trust in God, who has helped them on earlier occasions and who has delivered them from dangers. The Muslims should also have faith that if they work sincerely in God's cause, He will certainly help and protect them. Hence, the gratefulness expected of the Muslims does not simply consist of a verbal acknowledgement of God's benefaction. Gratefulness to God should manifest itself in actual deeds as well. If someone were to acknowledge the favor of his Lord, and yet is slack in seeking His good pleasure, lacks sincerity in serving Him, and entertains doubts that God's benefaction will continue in the future, then that can hardly be characterized as gratitude.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تخونوا الله والرسول وتخونوا أماناتكم وأنتم تعلمون.
Believers, do not be unfaithful to Allah and the Messenger, nor be knowingly unfaithful to your trusts. Believers, do not be unfaithful to Allah and the Messenger, nor be knowingly unfaithful to your trusts.
Trusts embrace all the responsibilities which are imparted to someone because he is trusted. These might consist of obligations arising out of an agreement or collective covenant. It might also consist of the secrets of a group. It might also consist of personal or collective property, or any office or position which might be bestowed upon a person by the group.
واعلموا أنما أموالكم وأولادكم فتنة وأن الله عنده أجر عظيم.
Know well that your belongings and your children are but a trial, and that with Allah there is a mighty reward.
Know well that your belongings and your children are but a trial.
Excessive love of money and one's children often impair the sincerity of a person's faith, and often lead man to hypocrisy, treachery, and dishonesty. The Quran therefore clearly points out that since love of a wealth or children drives people off the right path, it constitutes a considerable test for them. One's property, one's business, and one's offspring constitute a test for man, since they have been in his custody, so as to judge to what extent he observes the limits of property laid down by God and adequately performs his responsibilities. What is tested is how far man is able to control his animal self, which is strongly attached to worldly purposes, so that he is able to act as God's servant and render all the rights of worldly life in the manner laid down by God.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن تتقوا الله يجعل لكم فرقانا ويكفر عنكم سيئاتكم ويغفر لكم والله ذو الفضل العظيم.
Believers, if you fear Allah, He will grant you a criterion and will cleanse you of your sins and forgive you. Allah is the Lord of abounding bounty. If you fear Allah, He will grant you a criterion.
Criterion signifies that which enables one to distinguish between true and false, between real and fake. This is the shade of meaning conveyed by the Quranic term Furqan. If a man is God-fearing and tries his best to refrain from acts which displease God, God will create in him the ability to discern for himself at every step which actions are proper and which are not, which attitude conduces to God's good pleasure and which is likely to incur His wrath. This inner light will serve as a pointer at every turn and crossing, at every up and down in life, guiding him as to when he should proceed and when he should refrain, telling him which is the path of truth and leads to God, and which is false and leads to Satan.
وَإِذْ يَمْكُرُ بِكَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِيُثْبِتُوكَ أَوْ يَقْتُلُوكَ أَوْ يُخْرِجُوكَ وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ.
And recall how those who disbelieved schemed against you, to take you captive, or kill you, or drive you away.
They schemed, and Allah did also scheme.
Allah is the best of those who scheme, to take you captive, or kill you, or drive you away.
Apprehending the Prophet's migration to Medina, the Quraysh convened a high-level council attended by all the tribal chiefs at Dar al-Nadwa, council house, to decide on a decisive course of action against the Prophet, peace be upon him. They realized that once the Prophet, peace be upon him, left Mecca, he would be beyond their reach, rendering them helpless in face of a formidable threat. A group of them was of the view that the Prophet, peace be upon him, should be imprisoned for life and kept in chains. This proposal was, however, turned down on the ground that the Prophet's detention would not deter his followers from preaching Islam, that they would seize the first opportunity to release the Prophet, peace be upon him, even at the risk to their own lives. Another group suggested that the Prophet, peace be upon him, should be exiled, for this would remove the mischief and subversion far from Mecca, and would not matter where he spent his days nor what he did, for Mecca would be immune from his influence. This proposal too was discarded for the fear of the Prophet's persuasiveness and eloquence, and his ability to win the hearts of the people of other tribes, and thus pose a greater threat in the future. Finally, Abu Jahl suggested that a band of young men drawn from all the different clans of the Quraysh should jointly pounce upon the Prophet, peace be upon him, and kill him. In such a case, the responsibility for his blood would rest upon all the clans of the Quraysh. It would thus become impossible for Abd Manaf, the Prophet's clan, to take revenge on any one particular clan. Such a move would compel the Prophet's relatives to drop their claims for retaliation and force them to settle for blood money. Accordingly, the young men charged with the execution of this plan were selected, and were advised of the exact place and time at which they were expected to carry out this crime. Not only that, the would-be assassins did indeed arrive at the appointed place at the appointed time. However, before they could harm him, the Prophet, peace be upon him, managed to escape safely. The Quraysh plot was thus frustrated at the 11th hour.
وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا قالوا قد سمعنا لو نشاء لقلنا مثل هذا إن هذا إلا أساطير الأولين.
And when our verses are recited to them, they say, "We have heard. We could, if we willed, compose the like of it. They are nothing but fables of the ancient times."
وَإِذْ قَالُوا اللَّهُمَّ إِن كَانَ هَذَا هُوَ الْحَقَّ مِنْ عِنْدِكَ فَأَمْطِرْ عَلَيْنَا حِجَارَةً مِنَ السَّمَاءِ أَوْ ائْتِنَا بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ.
And also recall when they said, "O Allah, if this indeed be the truth from you, then rain down stones upon us from heaven, or bring upon us a painful chastisement. Then rain down stones upon us from heaven, or bring upon us a painful chastisement."
These words were uttered by way of challenge rather than a prayer to God. What they meant was that had the message of the Prophet, peace be upon him, been true and from God, its rejection would have entailed a heavy scourge, and stones would have fallen on them from heaven. Since nothing of the sort happened, it was evident that the message was neither true nor from God.
وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ.
But Allah was not to chastise them while you are in their midst, nor was Allah going to chastise them while they sought His forgiveness. Nor was Allah going to chastise them while they sought His forgiveness.
This is a rejoinder to the challenge implicit in the above-mentioned remark of the unbelievers. In response, it was explained why people were spared heavenly scourge during the Meccan period of the Prophet's life. The first reason being that God does not punish a people as long as the Prophet is in their midst, busy inviting them to the truth. Such people are rather granted respite and are not deprived of the opportunity to reform themselves by sending a scourge all too quickly. Second, if there are a good number of people in a land who recognize that they have been negligent and heedless and have been guilty of iniquity, who seek God's forgiveness and strive to reform themselves, there remains no legitimate ground for subjecting them to a heavenly scourge. The time for such a scourge comes when a prophet who has spared no efforts to reform his people feels that he has exhausted all his efforts and concludes that his people have no justification to persist in their iniquity and departs from that land or is banished from it by its people or is murdered by them. A scourge from on high then becomes imminent, since the people of that land have proven by their deeds their inability to tolerate any righteous element in their midst.